The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 4 has released on Disney+, and I've had a chance to watch the latest episode, which includes standout scenes, Star Wars Easter eggs, and more to break down. In particular, I'm going to be explaining the plot and ending for The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 4 entitled The Siege, in the aim to help you guys gather a greater sense of what happened. This analysis will also contain spoilers, so if you do happen to be someone who isn't up to date on Season 2, then I would recommend watching this video after you've caught up. If you want to see more uploads on every episode of The Mandalorian Season 2, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoy this video, remember to give it a like rating. But without further ado, let's dive into my breakdown and explained video for The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 4. After another action-filled and cameo-inspired episode of The Mandalorian last week, we would have suspected that this week we would get a quieter and more self-contained episode. As I said in last week's video, I didn't want to see this happen, and thankfully, this latest adventure goes big in a different direction. Despite teasing the return of Ahsoka Tano in episode 3, we don't end up meeting Anakin Skywalker's former apprentice just yet. Instead, in need of repairs, Mando decides to return to some old friends, getting sucked into a dangerous scheme and uncovering a conspiracy in the process. In other words, this was an important episode, not because of its links to the wider Star Wars world or Easter eggs, but because of its connection to the world that The Mandalorian itself has been building since its very first outing. We also get the return of many key players which seem to be along for the ride as the world of The Mandalorian is expanded. A key player in this episode is actually the very first perp Din Djarin ever takes in for bounty way back in the series' first episode, while the story itself sees him back on a familiar world with some familiar faces. There is also Carl Weathers' Greef Karga and Gina Carano's Cara Dune, who since we last saw them have turned the formerly backwater planet of Navarro into a prosperous and respectable trading post. Seeing Karga and Dune back is a nice reminder of the wider universe The Mandalorian was building in its first season, but it's also a new call to adventure for Mando. While Karga is now a respectable magistrate and Dune is yet another marshal, they've not completely managed to see off the Empire lurking on the planet, with one last outpost still looming from the shadows. Seeing as their old pal Mando has some time while his ship is being repaired, he agrees to help them take out the Imperial remnant. And what could possibly go wrong? Well, after putting Baby Yoda in a bar-turned-school taught by a protocol droid, our gang soon finds themselves in the midst of the Imperial base, but just as they're ready to blow up the reactor, they discover another spectre from the Mandalorian's past. It turns out that this location isn't just some outpost, it's actually a secret lab presided over by Dr. Pershing, the Imperial scientist who wanted to perform experiments on Baby Yoda back in Season 1 and who apparently extracted enough of his blood back then to create a test subject. We see this spoken test subject is glimpsed hanging in a vat, and while we as viewers might have an idea of what this Imperial remnant was planning, the note of a need for blood with a high M count takes us back to the midichlorians present in Force-sensitive individuals, suggesting Pershing was trying to create powerful Force-wielding warriors. All Mando knows is that Pershing and his masters are after his charge again. And when Mando realises that Moff Gideon is both alive and behind this whole thing, he immediately flies off to try and save Baby Yoda before it's too late. What follows is another great selection of action scenes as Din Djarin jets around, fighting off stormtroopers from the air and showing off his full range of abilities. Meanwhile, his friends are forced to escape slightly less dramatically, bursting out of the base in a strange-looking vehicle for a tense chase through the landscape with speeder bikes, TIE fighters and more. In the end, following a pretty exciting dogfight between Din Djarin's Razor Quest and the TIE Fighters, the Empire is soundly defeated, and both Bounty Hunter and Mini Jedi are free to head off and continue their quest. But a dark situation is looming. Apparently, the surviving Empire's activities on Outer Rim worlds, like this one, are starting to worry some members of the New Republic. They're up to something, and as we move to an Imperial ship, we start to get a sense of exactly what they're planning, with one officer noting an incoming new era that will presumably see the Empire back on top, and possibly explaining how it became the First Order. Presiding over it all with his secret army, Giancarlo Esposito's Moff Gideon, who now knows exactly where Mando is going with the child. Clearly, the Mandalorian's troubles are only just beginning. But that was my brief breakdown video explaining the plot and ending for The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 4. While some fans of the show might be frustrated that last week's tease wasn't continued immediately, and others might be a little tired of Mando doing chores on another planet, for me personally, Episode 4 was one of the more significant episodes we've seen so far. As much as The Mandalorian thrives on older Star Wars connections, the fact that it also stands so well within its own canon and world building can only be a good thing. I like that they focused on characters that we have had some slight development for and tried to push them forward into this season's storyline. It creates more consistency and continues the real threat in Moff Gideon, which I'm sure we will see plenty more of. However, with Dave Filoni directing next week's installment, it seems pretty certain that fans won't have to wait much longer for the return of a famous character. Though whether she'll be so happy to see Mando with an Imperial force close behind is another matter altogether. I'm giving Episode 4 of The Mandalorian Season 2 an 8 out of 10. I hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown and review, and overall I'm looking forward to seeing what happens on next week's episode to further the story of this season. I'm also intrigued to hear all of your thoughts on Episode 4, so let me know down below in the comment section, as well as listing your predictions for Episode 5. For more videos on The Mandalorian Season 2 over the next few weeks, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating. I will be doing an explained and review video for every episode this season, alongside bringing updates on the new Star Wars show, so make sure to keep a lookout for whenever I post. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.